All right, so we're going to do the comp lecture, and I'm following my guide, which is right here. It's in the Discord. I pinged everybody who has the compositor role, but you can find it in the post guide. All right, so the first step is obviously we want to name our file correctly. It's a naming convention in this file. You click New Project, New. I guess it doesn't give me an ability to rename it, so I'll just do it here. So I'm going to remake sequence 2, shot 8, put my initials, and the version I'm just going to say test. Okay, so once you got that named and you saved, we're going to get to some housekeeping, because one of the biggest errors beginner compositors make is they'll bring in all their stuff and they won't realize that it's not at the right frame rate. Like, After Effects default imports at 30, so you want to go ahead and set that to import at 24. So you can go up to Edit and then Preferences and then go to Import, and you'll see it'll say sequence footage right here. Just change that to 24, hit enter, hit OK, and now when you bring in your footage, it'll populate in this project panel. All of your assets will be in here. Right here it says frame rate. Hopefully everything will say 24. But yeah. The next step is you want to make sure you have a good file organization structure. I was taught in motion media to have an assets folder, a pre-comps folder, and a solids folder, which technically your program will generate for you if you ever make a solid layer. But the way you do that is just hit this little file button down there, or folder button down there. Type it in, assets. Oops. Always accidentally do that. Pre-comps. And solids. Yeah. And so once you have those there, this folder, your assets folder, that will contain any of your animation, your layout layers, all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and make a folder in here for Rebecca, because sometimes you'll have, 3 characters in there. You probably want to keep it organized. So that's how you make folders inside folders. But then you want to import, first, if I were you, I would import the animatic clip of your shot, just to make sure that when you create your master comp that all of the assets are going to be in, it's the correct frame count. So I'm going to go to File. I'm just going to pull from whatever I have in here. So I think that's it right here. So this is my animatic clip. As you can see, it's 24 frames per second, so that's correct. If you pull this out, you can just click and drag. This sometimes will show. You really, really want to make sure that that's 24, because if it's not, then all of your stuff is going to be messed up and it sucks to fix. But yeah, once you have that loaded in here, right click it, click New Comp from Selection, and this will be the comp that you build everything in. So if you want to name it something else, I usually would just name it whatever the sequence number, shot number, and then master or main or whatever you remember it by. I also tend to change the color to something that would stand out. This is the only composition that I would not nest in this pre-comp folder, just because you want to be able to get to it quickly. The animatic clip is an asset, so you can go ahead and put that in there. Yeah, so let's get to importing the animation. So when you're importing PNG sequences, it's better to click this import multiple files, because you're going to have to go back and forth between all these folders and such. So I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to import the line first and then go back and get the color. We're going to go back and get her main line. and the main color, and then the guitar, and the color. So once you have that all selected, you can select it all and either do Control question mark, or you can just click and drag it in. That'll drop it in here. Sometimes it won't be ordered correctly depending on how it was named. Oops. So you just might want to check to make sure everything's layered correctly. Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, so obviously you can scrub through the timeline and make sure. Once you have all that in there, you can also move your PNG sequences into your folder in your assets folder. Next, we can talk about importing the layout, which is pretty straightforward. You just navigate to that PSD, which is not here, of course. Why? Hold on. Am I crazy? Okay, that's weird. Yeah, so you find your PSD and then click Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. After Effects works pretty well with Photoshop. They're both Adobe programs, but if you had any like layer styles or any specific formatting, it should be able to take it. Make sure editable layer styles is enabled, and then import that. I'm not sure why this imported like that. It doesn't really matter because the layout's not animating, but just to be safe, I'm gonna show you like how to fix that. So yeah, you can right click on it, composition settings, it says frame rate right there, just change it to 24, and now you're fine. But yeah, once you have that, you can pull it in here just to see where it's going to be. You can, if you click or if you hold down Shift and then you click and drag, you can uniformly scale this down nicely. But this will, if you click inside of this, this contains your foreground folder, midground folder, background, all isolated. You might need to do some stuff to make sure that that's all like seamless, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Honestly, at this stage, I start to actually comp the entire animation just to get it in one pre-comp. So click select all, pre-compose, name this Rebecca Anim. Make sure move all attributes is selected. And then just because I think these are just empty layers. Yeah, okay, these are leftover references. Okay, so this is inside of our layout composition. Obviously we have these layers. I'm going to go inside the background and fix something real quick just because I don't particularly like when the sky is kind of a blob. So I'll show you how to fix that. So if you hit Control Shift Y on your keyboard, or actually just Control Y, I forgot. Control Y, you'll bring up a solid layer. This will just be a solid color. So you can eyedrop to the sky. You can do this for anything that's just like you need to get a solid color. I'll just put this under it, and then to try and make this kind of blend more, I'm gonna pull this down a little. Just add a blur. Let's go with fast box blur. Maybe this one. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, so that's there. But once you have that all set up, I would recommend honestly copying these layers, Control C, whatever, select them, and bringing them into your master composition, unmerged. because that way you can actually, like, you know, if you wanted to put Rebecca behind the tree, I mean, obviously you don't need to for the shot, but you could, you know, that's kind of why everything's layered like that. This obviously is kind of, this happens sometimes with layouts where you bring it out of the folder and then it like doesn't scale correctly. One way to like fix that, if you right click in your timeline, go to new and select null object, it'll just bring up this like little controller. You can make it any size you want. I like to make it a little bit bigger, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these layers. There's this little pick whip over here by parent and link. Just click and drag it to this null, and that'll allow me to move everything on this layer with this little controller. So I want to scale it down a little bit because it's just, yeah, I want to make sure that she fits in here properly and the layout is the correct size it wants to be. Yeah, so that's an easy little controller right there. I'm gonna set this to half so you can see it a little better. Okay. Oops, I definitely skipped some stuff. So some more organizational things. I just like to change the color of my layers just to make it a little bit easier to kind of like parse through when there's more things. So if you want to make all your layouts red or something because this controller is red, that works. Since you don't need this here anymore, you can delete it, and then, you know, it's pretty organized like that. I'm gonna skip around so I can actually start applying the effects. Yeah, but one of the things that I was taught in motion media is when comping, you want to test for contrast, right? So the best way to do that is in black and white. So if you go to effects and presets, search black and white. Oh, actually, I didn't show how to make an adjustment layer. To make an adjustment layer, this is going to be your layer that you use to test to see if it's in black and white. Just go right click, new, adjustment layer, and then drag this black and white on there. Now you have this non-destructive filter. And you'll be using that when you start to apply more lighting and all that stuff. So that's your contrast layer. If you want to name it that, you can right click it. Contrast layer. And then one of the little tricks that I learned for compositing when you want an effect to come from a certain part of the screen where the character is bordering the frame is a trick. It's an effect called Reptile, but I'll show you what happens if you don't put it on the character. So I'm gonna add a lighting on Rebecca real quickly just to show this problem. Okay, so obviously you see what's happening. The border of the frame is affecting her, even though this should not be applying to her just flat like that. So the way you fix that is you go into effects and presets, search CC Reptile, and I recommend putting this on any of your animations where the character borders the frame before you put any lighting on there. Check this little tiling box and check it to say unfold, and then wherever the character borders the frame, so up here she's bordering the top, just expand that a few hundred pixels. And then when you put your light back on, you see how it doesn't do that anymore? Sometimes you need to extend it more. Just depends on what you're doing, but yeah. Anyway, that's how you do that. Let me skip around a little bit. On my guide, I like included a bunch of stuff about like the different tools and all that stuff. I figure because you guys are in a MOMI class that you know how to use all that stuff already. But if you don't, all of it's here. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We don't use these. I doubt we'll use that one. The rest of this stuff functions just about the same as like Photoshop and Illustrator. These are the 3D controls, which I can show you how to use when we get to that point, because this doesn't have any 3D in it. Okay, let me just go ahead and skip to the effects. So I'm going to show you how to do that textured line boil, because that was something that took me a second to figure out. But the way you do this, so obviously I already have this comp with Rebecca's animation. We're going to go click into it and merge it again. And we're going to name this Rebecca Anim Line and Color. Move all attributes, click enter. And then once we have this, we're going to duplicate that. This one under it is going to serve as the color, while this one is going to be, we're going to isolate all the colors off of this except for black, and also a stroke that we put around the entire animation. So for now, I'm going to right click this and add a stroke on it. And that'll give the character that like nice little outline around it that's just lets it pop a little bit. I'm gonna set the value to 2.5 just so it's not too big. And then once I have that, we pre-compose it again because of the same thing about you can't stack certain things. So yeah, I'm gonna name this Rebecca Lines Comp. So as you can see, the stroke is gone. And so once you have that, then you do the thing that I was showing earlier with the color key, which is a bit tedious. I'll try to move faster this time around. So yeah, obviously you load that in here, and you just kind of start deleting things. I recommend when you do this, you have your things set to full on your settings down here. Basically, this little drop down will tell you, it's a setting for if you want it to be loading at like half quality or quarter quality, depending on if your GPU is like shitting itself. But yeah, if you have it on full, and you probably should when you're doing this type of stuff, just to make sure you're getting all the color out of the way. I'd do that for this. If you want to duplicate this, instead of dragging it, it's select one and then Control D, and it'll bring up another one. But for this, we're just going to be literally just subtracting all the colors. And what we're left with is the line art with that extra bump on it. That extra little stroke around it. And I noticed for this particular shot, I did notice the guitar needed a little bit more width on the line, which is fine, and you don't need to do anything crazy to like edit that. You can just put a stroke on an individual line export by doing the same thing. It's going to be red at first. You can just change it. The lowest setting is 1 though, so you have to be aware of that. But yeah, so let me go back to this, remove the rest of this stuff. Okay, I think for the most part that's all gone. One thing you want to keep watch for her specifically is sometimes these little lines around here don't want to go all the way. So you might have to like really get on the like last pixels to make sure they go away. Shit. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So once you've done that, again, you want to pre-comp it again. And so this time we're going to make this Rebecca Line Boil comp. So now you have a fresh comp. So this is your lines, and then this is the color under it with no outline change. And from there, you want to go back into your effects and presets and search brush strokes. And this gives us that nice little texture on the line art. I have this entire like all the settings for this is all written out in this guide, so I'm just gonna copy that real quick. But basically, this is fine. This preset is fine. The stroke angle needs to be, or the stroke length is 1, or the brush size is 1. The stroke length is 1. It's 1.1. Stroke density is 1.3. The randomness is 0.5. And then you select paint on transparent on this paint surface drop down. So it's pretty subtle, but now you see it has that sort of like grainy look on it. Yeah. So yeah, that's, oh good lord, sorry. But yeah, that's how you get that effect on there. I will say that guitar is looking a little too much than I did before. I might just leave it then. How did I do it before? Oh, I know. I comped them both and then I put it over. Okay. I think the way that I fixed this last time was I comped the guitar color and the line, so it didn't go over the strings as well. Because it really just needs like a little tiny like bump. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So that's how you get the nice little boiling line effect. Onto the actual lighting of the scene. So, like I was saying earlier, the way that I do all of the lighting, usually I do it on just colors that are merged. So I would start working off of this right here. We don't have to do it that way, but I'm just gonna go ahead and show you like how I I do it most of the time. And you can even do it like in this composition as well, and then move it over. But you know, it doesn't really matter either way. I'm just gonna go ahead and bring the line art out of here so we can see. Yeah, so you can see the layout. It's best to do the lighting whenever you're on this layout, just so you can like be like, okay, I see where I want to put some shadows or where I want to change the color of the character. But in the guide, I do have all of the overlay settings, all of the opacity, all of the blend modes. So I'm just gonna go step by step with this. So yeah, right click, layer styles. I'm gonna start with the gradient that I had on her originally. So it'll load in at first, and it'll be like this you know, black and white. And you can edit that by just going in here, clicking edit gradient. I have the colors pulled up on this side of my screen, so you can reference those whenever you're doing it, but you know, you just change the colors in here. And then the settings are all also written down. So the opacity is 61, the blend mode is overlay. I think I was not as clean about trying to get all of the little jittery thingies from the color key. Let me see if I can go back and fix that a little. Actually, no, never mind. That's fine. Yeah, so the opacity is 61. The angle is 90. You want to click this little align with layer. You want to do off. You only want to have that enabled if you're working in 3D, because otherwise the gradients will shift around and act weird. So you just want to be careful of that. Yeah, but next I would do inner shadow, which is usually going to function as your rim light, or like it says, an inner shadow. The settings for that are, the blend mode is vivid light. The color is, I just have it off screen, so I'll just pick it real quick. The opacity is 47%. The angle is 120. And the distance is 16. Yeah, and the size is 5. Okay. So we've got this here. And otherwise, I think I'll just move on to what I had for the layouts, because obviously we're going to add some lighting onto this layout as well, and always be using your little contrast layer to be checking. Oh, also Control S to save, because this program does not save automatically for you, and it sucks whenever it crashes. Hopefully it won't do that for you. So if I were to look at this, I would say that Rebecca is washing out into the sky, and that this area either needs to be brighter or she needs to be darker, right? Or this area around her needs to be darker. So that gives us some potential options. If we want to start by adding lighter, so actually wait, let me go over the fog, because a fog is also something that we do for all of the graveyard scenes. So I'll show you how to do that. So you create a new solid layer again. So new solid layer, or Control Y. Doesn't matter what color you make it. I'm just make it gray. Gonna name it fog. And actually, I just realized I probably should have put that in the background layer. Okay. So do that instead and just put it in the background layer. Scale it up if you need to. But once you have that in there, we're going to use an effect called fractal noise. So click and drag that onto your fog, and you get a bunch of these controls. So let me go over what all of these really do. So the fractal type, that's a whole bunch of different like ways that this noise appears. For this, we're going to be using the dynamic setting, so just this right here. The noise type also kind of changes the way that it looks. We're just going to go with linear. We're not going to touch the contrast or the brightness for now. The complexity, I think I'm going to change it to 5. And for this, you will be animating this property. I'll get to that in a second. But to get it to like blend the way you want, I would set this to add on the blending modes down here. And then I'll teach you guys a little bit about masking. So you can use these vector tools up here, whether it's the shape tool or the pen tool. It works the same as it does in Illustrator. But the way that I would do this is I would select most of it that's on screen, leave a little bit at the top, kind of cut it off. So this creates this mask, right? And if you get into this drop down, you'll see it here. What you want to do is you want to feather the mask using this property here to kind of like make it fade a little bit, like it's fading into the sky. It has more of like a natural edge to it. And you pop back into this just to see how that's looking. I'd say that's pretty bright, so we can turn the opacity down a little bit. Okay. And then this little evolution setting is how you're going to get it to kind of animate like, it's like puffing, right? So you hit the stopwatch, and that's how you key it. If you hit U on your layer, on your keyboard in here, it'll show all the keyframes that you have. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this to, let me see, how long is the shot? Not long at all. Okay, so I'm going to hop back in here, and I'm going to key this to move that much. Just want to test it because you don't want it to be too fast. Okay, I think that's okay. And then to kind of make it move across the screen, I would scale it up a little bit. So shift and drag. Move it over. And then key the position by hitting P. Do the same thing you did before, hit U. And just kind of drag it over so it's moving ever so slightly. And yeah, test it because I don't want it to be too fast. So now you have that fog. Okay, so let me put the black and white filter on again. So now that gives your comp a little bit of a layer of contrast. This is, you know, the light is coming from there, the fog is coming from there. You can also make it larger. If you don't want to make it larger on the actual like layer itself, you can do it on here, I believe, if you hit this transform. I might scale it up a little bit. Yeah. I think that's better.
It looks kind of cool in black and white.
Oh yeah. It's fun to look at for sure. Okay, so the other things I want to go over is kind of like how I do that like atmospheric lighting breakdown. So the further away it is from the, you know, the foreground, the lighter it's going to be, especially in this scene. So on my guide, I have different, like I have different settings for each like gradient and each like highlight. Let me just go through here real quick. I'm going to start with the midground. So, gonna do the same thing what we did before, layer styles. I'm gonna do gradient overlay. It's going to be over the entire thing. Just adjust those colors to whatever it says in the guide. Um, 90 degrees. And the soft lighting. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we got one, and then let me do the background real quick. Do the same thing. Gradient overlay. Change those colors again. This time I would make it lighter. But like I said, everything's written down in that guide, so you can match it exactly. And then same thing, soft light. I think I did 91% opacity. Yeah. So now we went from, you know, this to this, just with some gradients. And already you can start to see, okay, there's a point of contrast, there's values that are coming together. Same thing as I did on the character before with adding a highlight. I'll just try to speed through it again. With layer styles, I might want to do the same thing I did before with that reptile thing, because it might do the same thing here. I'm going to particularly put it on this. Unfold, do left, down, right. Okay. Alright, and then we're going to do layer styles, inner shadow, and it's going to follow my settings over here. It's vivid light. I usually do this for any of those inner highlights. The opacity is 32. The distance is 57, I guess, on this. That doesn't seem right. Yeah, that's not right. The distance is like 15. Okay. So, yeah. But that's how you get that little subtle highlight on here. I'm not going to do anything super crazy for this. And then for this background, I'm going to go back into this composition where you have the mausoleum isolated, and I'm going to put, I'm just going to do a color overlay on this. This file is going to look a little bit different than the one I made before. I don't feel like I need to change a ton about the lighting on this. I just need to make it brighter. So I'm just going to put a light blue over it, and then do some sort of soft light. Let's see what makes it brighter. Oh shit, not that. Oh, that's really blue. Yeah, anyway, so you got that. I might just copy and paste the layer style that I have on here to do this, just because I can. And I also try to figure out what I want to do. Okay, well, that was working before. Let's get one more little highlight going. Do another inner shadow. Yeah. Okay, so here you got some basic lighting. The next step that I would take is doing some like focal blur. Or actually, I didn't really touch the trees over here. I didn't touch anything in the foreground, did I? I don't know. This is the type of process where it's just kind of like trial and error. But I'll go in here and individually do it on this too. Remember to do that reptile trick that I talked about, just because you don't want the stupid frame border. So the tree is touching the top of the frame and the right. So expand that. The bike is also touching the top of the frame. Make sure it's unfold. Okay. I had specific settings for Septik's tree. Or not Septik's tree. I guess this tree works too. Let me just set that up real quick. Oh, hi.
Sorry.
Welcome.
I don't know who anyone's like actually. I know you. Yeah. I've had class with you. I know you're a director. I don't know what anybody else looks like. I only know names and descriptions.
Yeah, I'm the producer. I'm recording right now. We're doing a compositing lecture.
I figured I'd pop in and say hi because I haven't actually gotten or talked to you guys in person yet. We're doing some cleanup shots. I did one last week. I wanted to see that conflict, like ridiculous things. Yeah.
I'm just going over silly little After Effects thingies right now.
I kind of hate After Effects.
Fair. It's definitely not for the faint of
I'm more
heart.
of an, I haven't really used it, but it seems like it makes more sense with the way my brain works. But I have used After Effects, and I don't like it. So respect the people who comp in After Effects because it sucks.
It's not as bad as you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got, like I said, we got the basic lighting on here. I'm gonna do a few more things before I actually do start to add more of the lighting that you were talking about, because I do know what you're talking about. Last thing I want to talk about is the focal blur, which is just gonna be, further back it is in space, blur it, and if it's really close to the camera, it's the same thing, but that's not happening in the shot, so the effect for that is called camera lens blur. You can find it in the effects and presets. I usually do this to individual parts of the layout. Thankfully, this is set up really nicely, so it's pretty easy to do that. But you do have to do the thing that I was talking about before, where you have to pre-comp things again before you do that. So let's do tree blur, move all attributes, bike blur. Actually, I don't even know why I comp the tree. I'm not going to put anything on there. But anyway, you can drag the camera lens blur. It automatically set to 5. I'm just going to go ahead and put this at a 3 right now, because this is not that far away. So you have that little bit of a blurring effect. You got to repeat the same steps in here. So gravestone, blur. Me when I can type. Guitar case, blur. And the grass, I'm going to do something else for that. Ooh, shit. I made a mistake. Look at that. Okay, well, I'll show you how to go back and fix that. I accidentally put the effects on the same thing, so I'll show you how to move that, because it happens sometimes. I guess it doesn't matter. I don't know. Sometimes it matters. I guess this time it doesn't. Sometimes when you put blurs on things that have layer styles on them, they look really weird, but I guess that didn't happen. I'm not a stickler for the process as long as the shot looks good, Okay, in that case, I'll just go ahead and copy and paste that blur onto the grass as well. And then the last step is that mausoleum in the back. So I might put this at a 6 or 7. I'll just do a 6 for now. Yeah. Okay, so obviously in this shot, the light is really coming from down there. One of the ways that you can start to add more light into the scene itself is literally just by making a blob of light. And the way you can do that is you can use this shape tool. Looks like this has a stroke on. You don't want to have a stroke on for this, so to turn it off, you just click on the actual blue text that says stroke up there, and then select that line with the strike through. It's the same as in Photoshop in Illustrator. For this, I'm going to just color pick this area and get a nice lighting color. And I'm just legitimately gonna draw a big shape. And once we have that shape, I promise I have a plan here. We are going to go to effects and presets, search fast box blur. I'm going to put that on our shape layer, and we're going to blur the heck out of that thing. So, I already taught you about applying masks with the pen. I'm going to teach you about something called track mats and alpha mats and luma mats. This is basically like a clipping layer with extra steps. I wish After Effects just had clipping layers, but of course nothing can be that simple. So the way that you get things to clip into each other, let's say I want this lighting to, say I want this lighting specifically to clip onto Rebecca. Actually, let me merge these together. Rebecca effects. Yeah, just name that. Okay, so that's all there. So let's say I want this lighting to clip onto Rebecca. I will make a duplicate of that Rebecca layer by hitting Control D. I drag the shape layer that is our lighting layer to where it is above one of the layers of Rebecca. Then I go over here to this It says no mat. It says track mat. You might not have it open. Sometimes After Effects will like open and this is all you see. If you don't see that, go down to this very bottom left hand corner and hit this little second little box circle icon, and that'll bring it up. But once you do that, you're going to want to hit this no mats on the shape layer and then select it to go onto Rebecca. Right now it's set to be an alpha mat. I learned this in motion media. It's kind of hard to explain. Alpha mats work based off of the transparency value, and then if you hit this little circle square down here, it'll turn into a luma mat, which works based off of the light value. And if you hit this little invert button, it will then put it behind it. Like it'll select everything that that's not matted to this thing, because this is Rebecca, so it's gonna affect everything but Rebecca. And same thing with the luma mat. So that's a little bit of weird shit right there. But to get like a nice wash light, if you want to start applying lights on the character, this is where I start to just play around with blending modes. I'm not sure what style you want to go for in terms of like how the line art is affected by the light. Do you care if the line art changes color, or do you want it to change color like not to a degree where it becomes too bright since the line art is black?
I guess I would have to see how it looks like, because for me, when I was just testing stuff out, I wanted the liner to still be black, but
Because there's a way to do that as well.
it depends on how like the lighting looks, because I know for some shots, I know it would look really good if the lighting did affect the liner itself.
Because the way that this is set up is you very easily can just take the line art and put it above it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter either way.
For now, just keep the liner above.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to go with a color dodge, and I'm going to play around with the opacity of this. Maybe a classic color dodge. Yeah. Anyway, this is something that can be edited and duplicated, even if we really want to. You know, this is when you can start to see how this affects it. And if you want to change the way that this looks, you can go to this convert vertex tool. That'll like give you some handles to work with, or you can just use the pen tool to move stuff like this around so you have more control over what the lighting actually does. I think honestly, if I really wanted to hit more control over the lighting, I'd just blur it a little bit less. It's all about like trial and error when this sort of stuff. Yeah, so you can delete points if you want. I don't know why that made the things jump forward. Oh god, what did I do? Okay, yeah. If you double click, it'll allow you to use those points again. But yeah, all of this, it just depends on whatever you want this to have or how bright you want it to be. You know, whatever the end goal is for you. Just got to play around with it. But because you have this alpha matte setting, it means that you can also put this same lighting on the things like the midground and background as well. So you do the same thing where you duplicate that and then you set that track matte to be the midground, right? And so now you have the lighting affecting that as well. So I don't know if this is kind of what you were looking for.
I guess I imagine more lighting would come from above rather than like all the way from the back. But
I mean, I can do like a god ray. I just, you know,
but the lighting is
because what I can also do is,
I like how it's a little bit more clear how like towards us it's darker and from the back it's brighter. Like that's I was looking for that big contrast. See, like even in the black and white, it's a little bit more obvious. So yeah, that's yeah.
I just want to see something real quick.
It's a little more.
It is a little orb,
It's an orb.
but let's see. Oh, that's too
I
intense.
think the main lighting would be
Oh my god.
she's going to
Yeah, Rebecca Necromation, bro. Like, okay, well, this might not work for this particular effect. Or maybe it needs to be applied at the end. Anyway. But if you want to, something that I also just didn't do is you can just straight up add more shadows just by drawing them on. So that's okay. That's definitely part of the process. And I can just show you guys how to do that as well. So let's say you want to, you know, have this. I'm going to get rid of Rebecca real quick. So let me just get rid of these layers. So let's say that you want to have like a hard edge on that gravestone or something that's more defined. You absolutely can do that. So take your pen tool. I'm going to get a darker shade of blue. And I'm just going to trace it to the best of my ability. And I, might not line it up perfectly. That's okay. So you do the same thing here where you clip it into here by making this track mat like that. Do the same thing with your box blur. That's like the fastest blur for these sorts of vector layers. What did I just do with this right here? Bye. Thanks for coming. And also, if you don't like the color that something looks like, you can change it pretty easily through here as well. You know what I mean, though. Same thing with even just like actually adding shadows as well. You can do the same thing. I think it might even be easier to do that in the actual background composition itself. So you can just literally put the shadow under here. I think a lot of them were kind of rounded off and tapered. So I'm just going to start by making a shape. I'm going to put it under this. Change the color to... I'm going to try and match it with the ones that are on here. And then there's obviously multiple ways to feather something like this. Honestly, I'm going to just merge it and then mask it because I think that might be a little easier. So same thing with the pen tool, you can mask it. If that happens, you got to switch it to subtraction and then feather it. Gives you that extra sort of shadow there. Repeat the step. blur it a little bit because it had a pretty sharp edge. Might use a Gaussian blur for that just because it's less, doesn't distort it as much. But yeah, you see how you get that kind of stuff? You can definitely add it. Yeah, let me put Rebecca back. Does that give it a little bit of extra, like...
Yeah, that's definitely exactly like what I was looking for.
Okay.
Just little details like that.
Yeah, and that absolutely can be done. That's not a problem. I'm still playing around with the color that I want on her.
And it makes it look actually like, I don't know how to explain it, like, really nice.
Yeah. Okay, so let's let me think for a second. There might be instances where you want lighting to travel. You can animate a mask. You can animate any of this stuff, right? So I'm gonna try and do that real quick. This might take me a second. I'm just gonna wing it. So the way that I'm gonna do that is I'm literally just gonna like eyeball and key this. And this totally isn't the way that it would look. I'm just trying to see something. Okay. So you got this sort of tracking her face a little bit, but as you can see, it's moving in between each frame. So how do you fix that? You can set the layer to posterize, I believe. So if you go to Effects and Presets, search Posterize Time, put that on your layer. I'll let you control the frame rate. You set it to 12. And I'm freaking crazy. Hold on. Let me comp this first. Forgot I have to merge it, of course. Alright. And then I gotta put this back on Rebecca. It's back to blue. Okay. Let's try that again. Obviously a little bit jank, right? But you see what I mean? Make sure that's back on there. What it does is it makes it so now it's on 2s, so it's less for you to track. Obviously that's not really how I would do lighting, but if you really wanted to do that, you can also even animate the path of your of this. If you really want to get into like the nitty gritty of trying to do this, if you hit this drop down, you go to contents, you go to shape, you go to path. You can hit the stopwatch here for this. I'm gonna clear the transform or the position property. Click that stopwatch and it will key the position of your path. So I'm gonna skip 1 frame, go to 4. Let's say I want the lighting to always make her face a little brighter, but I don't want it to reach her head because it starts to make it look too blue. The one thing I don't like about After Effects is the way that you have to select the stupid points. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Here I am trying to get it now. I don't know how to get it to work right off the bat, honestly. God damn it. Just kind of gotta keep doing it until it figures it out. If it would please figure it out. Okay. Alright, well, I don't know why I needed to do that, but as you can see, you can now kind of like curve it and control it through here. So if that's too extreme, you can always move it. this is really messy, but I hope you get the point. Um, yeah, so your path animates now. That actually looks smoother. You don't even see that jittering as much. So yeah, that's one way to do some sort of like shadow that tracks where it's not like manually you're trying to do every single little thing because the computer is interpolating that. Yeah. If you have your colors separated from your, from your line art layer, regardless, you can really play around with any of the colors merged. But if you do decide to use that color key method to subtract, then you can also apply individual like shadows and whatnot on there. I certainly don't have a problem with people playing around as long as everybody can get to the same page for the final product. I'm trying to think, what else would I want to add to this? Maybe like a shadow on the tree here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that.
Also, because of the fact that the scene is so blue, and she's so blue and purple, you could add a red, orange, whatever gradient above. I'm not sure how to explain it.
A gradient like above?
Like on top of everything, because you know how the scene is so blue. There could be
Like an adjustment layer?
yes, probably.
Or do you really just mean like a gradient?
Can you put over gradient just to see? Apologies, I'm just trying to
No, that's fine.
know how it's like.
So what colors do you want it to be?
Try to put like an orange red. Anything that's not in the areas of blues and stuff. It might not work, but is there a way you could put that under the line art?
Under the liner? Yeah.
Yes. Honestly, when I comp the shot, I think I'll just play around with it as well. 'Cause I need to see what do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like,
I think if you are you just trying to balance the colors?
yeah, balance the colors a little because it's super blue.
It might there might be an easier way because I think I get what you're trying to do, but there literally are effects like built in for color balancing. So I can just try to do that.
Blue, but I want to see if like adding a little bit of red would make it look better.
Let's do. You know what you can do? If you want there to be both, you can mask the adjustment layer and fade it with the mask.
Can you turn off the adjustment layer on and off?
Yeah, I don't know, but
It looks fine. I was just like trying to see something.
I think the last thing I'll go over for now is how to do like a character shadow. But if you like, honestly, those like little color balance layers on top of everything are really easy. Actually, wait, I thought I was gonna do a shadow on the tree. Let me do a shadow on the tree. Let me find it real quick. Yeah. All right. So you can see it better. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think I covered most of that stuff. I'm just gonna show the last thing. So how to do a character shadow. I'm not gonna lie, this is the one thing that I like low-key suck at. So this to me takes like trial and error as well. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna comp this again. I'm gonna name this Rebecca Shadow. You're just gonna want to duplicate whatever animation of your character, whatever you want to make a shadow out of that's animating. Now move all attributes. I'm gonna solo it so I can see it. I'm just gonna go in here, search fill. There's other ways to put a color on there, like the layer style, but I'm just gonna do this. Place it on there, and then I'm gonna get a shadow color. Solo it again, and honestly, I'm going to right click it. I'm gonna click transform. I'm gonna click, not that, clip, flip horizontal, or not flip horizontal, flip vertical. Flip vertical. Yeah. Okay. So now I have this Shadow Rebecca version. Good lord. Okay. And this is going to be what I use for the shadows. Now, the way to get that to like actually conform to the ground is a little trickier. There's two effects that I usually use. One is called corner pin. So you apply that to there. It shows these little pins. You just kind of like adjust it to where it's like kind of close enough. With this, you kind of just have to play it and see. So yeah, you got that going. I feel like it could be wider and flatter. Let me see. Yeah. Let me check. This color is not right. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Alright, so you got that done. I also sometimes use CC slant, which I don't think is necessary here, but you can like set a floor and then it'll slant for like whatever direction. I literally just might make this a little wider. But yeah, it'll also bend if you slant it a certain way, like that. I guess that could work too. This is just, you got to be careful because you want to make sure that it actually is on the ground correctly. Yeah. Okay, but once you have that, I would go ahead and comp it again, name it shadow, and then feather, and then you do the same thing where you mask it to the ground and feather it so it kind of matches up with the other shadows in the file. So you set your mask to subtract and feather it. And now you have this. You have this awesome file. Yeah, that's about all I have for this, honestly. The only other things that I would probably go over. Oh, I didn't talk about particles. Do you guys want to learn about particles?
Yeah.
This is just a fun thing. It'll definitely show up in other parts of the film. I know probably the garage and the concert. Yeah. And now I won't lie, this shit is fucking confusing. I don't even really get this, but do the same thing. Get a solid layer. Control Y. And name it be a particle. Doesn't matter what color it is. Drag it all the way to the top, and then you're gonna want to go to Effects and Presets and search. Actually, I need to pull up my instructions for this. Okay, you gotta search CC Particle Systems, and then drag that onto your thing. I think. Okay, yeah. Wow. Alright. Let's get rid of everything. Okay. So, this is what it starts with, right? And yeah, the piss explosion, right? So the thing about this is there are a lot of settings. It took me a while to figure out how to get all of this stuff to work. In the guide, I've saved you the trouble of trying to figure out what all of that shit means, and I've just kind of made a summary of what each thing does. But basically, you're just going to want to copy what I have, and I'll make new settings for each sequence so you don't have to worry about that. Basically, a lot of these just control, like it says, the physics of it, how it like generates particles, and then the rest of this stuff has to do with like the color, the look, all that stuff. So I'll just go ahead and say what you need to do. I have it set to where the birth rate up here is 0.2. And the interesting thing about this is if you have it at 0.1, it barely does any. If you have it at 0.3, it does too much. Honestly, I might do it to 0.28 because it really is that like serious. I don't know why. No, hold on. Maybe 0.7. Okay, I don't know. Whatever. Technically, mathematically, the value is there. It's just, this is so, like, sensitive. It's very confusing. The longevity value is 3.5. The radius, you really are only going to want to mess with the producer for the X and Y. The X is 631. And the Y is 157. This just kind of spreads out the particles so they're not all bunched up. The velocity, I set it... What did I do? Fuck. I feel like I set it to near 0. Let's see. Oh yeah, I did. I set it to -0. Right. Okay. I don't think I changed that. Gravity, I did -0.4. Resistance, I did 44. Direction, I didn't change. And it's the particle type, we're going to go ahead and do faded sphere. The birth size for that, it's going to start at 0, so it's very small. And when it dies, it'll be 0.69. Nice. Size variation is 91, so you get a bunch of different types of spheres in there. Max opacity is 50, so it's not like too overpowering. And then I have colors to pick from in the guide to what it's supposed to be like. Another neat thing about the particle generator is for some reason, if you don't like slide your thing over and then like bring it out more, you just aren't really gonna see anything. I might have to bump up the birth rate of this. Oh my god. Okay, not that much.
I don't like that it's called birth rate.
Right? Like, what the freaky deek? There's a lot, yeah. Let's.
Adobe Freaky Effects is weird.
What if Adobe After Effects was called Adobe Freaky Effects and literally nothing changed?
Adobe Freakder Effects. But yeah, there you go. Now you have lovely particles. And if it's too much, you can decrease it. One of the things I do, and I recommend you do because it'll look weird if you don't. Oh, also I like to have the blending mode be like add or something, but yeah, whatever. Comp it again because, like I said, some of these things are really weird if you don't merge it down. This particularly, for some reason, it will not mask to anything if the particle is on the same layer as the mask. So let's do particle mask, comp that, and I would do the same thing you did with your fog and make it so it masks and like fades up naturally into the sky with the feather. So same thing you've been doing, and that way the particles just fade off screen nicely. And you play around with that as much as you want. Even I don't really know what exactly I want to do. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got. The only thing left is like if you're working on a file, make sure you do not just save your After Effects like AEP file. You need to collect it in order to work within it and have all your assets. Your assets are not embedded into this file. It's not like Photoshop or Procreate where you have all your layers, you can save it and then you'll open it up and it'll all be there. If you only save your AEP and like move it to your drive and try to open it, you'll get a bunch of color bars and none of your shit will be there and you'll freak out and be like, what the fuck happened? So the way that you save an After Effects file is you go to File, Dependencies, Collect Files, needs to be saved, whatever. Collect source files, make sure it all is selected. This is fine, it'll just reveal the folder. Click collect. This is fine, whatever you named it. And then it will put your AEP file in with a report file, and then this footage folder, which is really the most important thing, that contains all the assets and everything that you've been using. And that's what you'll be zipping into the Dropbox. And that's just what you'll be using on your personal computer, whatever. Yeah, and for now, I don't care if you guys export like an MP4 or a MOV out of here. The way you do that is make sure you're on your master composition. Well, I haven't really not been organizing any of this shit, good lord. Anyway, make sure you're in your master composition. Go to export, render queue. Let me get rid of this. I don't need two of them. Okay, just get rid of it. Jesus, go away. Okay. Make sure that this is checked. Yeah, I'll put it to wherever. I don't care about any of this yet. We'll get to that when we get there. But once you have everything ready, you just hit render. It might take a second. And you'll hear that lovely little noise, and that means that it went through. And yeah, that is how you composite a scene. I did not go over 3D layers. I don't know if you guys want me to go over that. That's definitely used in this film, but I can open the proof of concept to show that.
Can you open the proof of concept to show the 3D ones?
Yeah, okay. Save this, let me back out. And I will load that up real quick. So this is definitely for those files that are more advanced and have more depth. Actually, it might be easier for me to show this in a file that's not composited, just so you don't have a million bajillion things happening. I think I did it in here as well. I'm just going to do that pre-composite that I did, because I also used the 3D layers there. After Effects 3D is really weird, so it might take some like getting used to. Oh god, what did I do? Huh? What? Okay, well, let's see if we can fix a color bar issue. Why did this happen? Alright. Today I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot this bullshit, if you ever see it. So yeah, this is what happens if you either, one, just open your AEP, or two, After Effects just decides to say, fuck you, fuck your file, I don't want it to load. Right-click whatever asset you're trying to find, go to Reload Footage. Okay, that didn't work. Never mind. Go to Replace Footage, File, navigate to wherever the hell it is. I think it's in here. I don't even understand how this happened. So this says 7. Fucking crazy? No. I must be clinically insane in the membrane.
It's never super encouraging when the one person who knows what's going on is like, damn, I have no idea what's going on.
I'm just, this happened to me earlier. I'm like, is it, I'm not even sure, because like, this is where it is. This says Windows temp. So what's the problem? Okay. So it found that. Now I have to find this. Yeah, same thing. So you literally just have to do this for everything, which sucks. I'm not sure how this even happened, if I'm being honest with you. It's literally right there. It's just like unlinked itself. Bless. I love After Effects. Bless. So give me a second. This is so annoying. What? Okay, I'm not crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's where I just got the Rebecca PNGs. And suddenly I go in here and there's nothing.
That's
That don't make no sense. My man.
That's how I felt the other day when I was looking for that one file from, I don't even remember what sequence. I literally checked the folder you told me it was in right before that, and then you were like, no, it's in this folder. And I checked it again, and it was there. But I swear to God, I had checked it like 2 minutes prior.
I'm tweaking, bro. Okay. Genuinely, I've never had this happen.
Is it certified second floor one building?
I'm so confused. Wait a minute. Is this because of the file conversion? Did it do something weird? Are these zipped? Wait, it is. What the fuck did it do to my folder? What did it, oh my god, bro. What the hell? Get me out of here. Fuck. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Okay. Let's try this again. Maybe I'm a dumbass. Maybe I didn't do this correctly. Okay, maybe I'm just a dumbass. I must be crazy. I must be crazy. I must be bonkers.
I think it's after folks try to test you right now.
I was crazy once. Okay, let's try this again. Maybe I'm dumb as fuck. Okay, I am dumb as fuck. I just opened a zip. Okay. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Okay. Yeah, so as you can see, this is a little more complicated. I have two views. Let me switch it to one just so I can show you what's going on. Okay. So this is a unsuspecting file, right? Let me just let it cache real quick. Of course the fucking layers got messed up in this too. What the fuck? What is happening? I've never seen this shit happen. Like, y'all saw me export this shit in the server, right? It got rid of the line art.
What?
Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't know why this is happening. I'm just trying to show you the 3D. I don't know what's going on. So the way that I have this set up basically is I have a 3D camera and all of these layers are 3D. If you see these little cube boxes down here checked, that means that they're 3D layers. And the way that you work in After Effects 3D, I wouldn't try to move around in 3D in like the normal camera view just because you can end up fucking up the position of stuff. So if you hit this little drop down box right here on your viewport, click 2 views, it will open up another one over here. So over here you have your active camera, and then over here you have something else. So it's on default right now. I usually just click on like custom view, and then you will be in this lovely pseudo 3D space. And in this area you can set up your Z depth, and I will try my best to kind of go over how that works briefly. So the way that you move in this space is actually pretty easy. You just hold down Alt, and then if you left click, you can rotate around the space. If you right click, you can zoom in, zoom out. And if you middle click with your mouse, you can pan around. So that's a lot easier than using these controls up here, but basically they do the same thing. It's just a shortcut for them. So yeah, when you do stuff in 3D, all of these layers, when they start off, you know, they're going to be flat and merged. You're not going to see them if they're not 3D turned on. But once you activate these 3D layers, that gives them the ability to have Z depth. And the way that you do that is really simple. You just see, if you click on a layer, this little gizmo thing will show up, showing, you know, Y axis, X axis, and the Z axis is this blue arrow. So if you want things to be further away from the camera or closer or whatever, you just push and pull that respectively. I seem to have fucked up my scene here, so let me put it back. Okay. Yeah, so I basically have this layered to where the tombstone, let me zoom out a little. Man, this is hard to view. Oh, much better. Okay. Actually, wait, can I just? Yeah, okay. Yes, that's better. Alright, so I have this to where the tombstone is in that very front towards the camera. Then you have Septik. Then you have the mid-ground, and Rebecca's actually just kind of like floating. like, you don't know that because, you know, the camera only sees, you know, they pushing in. And then way behind that, I have the background layer, and then behind the background layer I have the fog, and then the sky I didn't even bother making 3D because it doesn't need to pan like that. Yeah, and so that's how you set that up. You literally just move it back in space, but to animate the push in, you're gonna have to get a 3D camera. So I'm gonna delete this, and the way you get a camera is you right click in your workspace, your timeline, whatever, go to new, and then you do camera. This will pop up. Now, I, honest to God, did not pay attention in my motion media class when they taught us about this shit. I just know that you don't use that one. I don't know why. I have no idea what it does, but we use a one-node camera. It seems to be easier to control. I don't care what you name it. It doesn't seem to matter. But that's how you'll spawn a camera into your scene. And then with this camera, you can go to the transform values and basically you will be keying your position for the Z value. And if you want to separate those values to just specifically key the Z one and not the entire thing, you can right click it and then click separate dimensions and then hit that Z, and then you can do the thing where you can zoom it in. So yeah, and I'll do that again for everyone. And one thing that I like to do for this type of stuff, just because with camera movements, you want the camera movement to be smooth, right? And if you just do it with these linear keyframes that After Effects generates, it's fine, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But let's say you wanted to spice it up a little, like if you wanted to have it like ease or something, and select both of them and then hit F9 on your keyboard. That will convert these frames into easy ease. And then if you click this little graph right here, brings you to the graph editor. And this little bad boy, especially in your 3D layers, is going to make it so you can do all sorts of cool stuff if you want to. So, I don't know. Bouncy Septik.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool. It's cool.
That's very cool. I've always wanted to know what the hell that was. Because I saw, like, I think in 2 different shows, I think in South Park, they were showing how they layered it, and I was like, why the fuck are they in 3D? And it was exactly this.
Yeah.
So I was curious about how that works.
Am I crazy? Okay. I'm an old school After Effects user. Apparently there's 2 types of graph editors. I don't know what the new one is. I think it's a speed graph. I feel like this might be on the speed graph. I have to figure out if it's on the speed graph. Hold on.
That's a
No, it's on a value graph. What's the speed graph for this then? Oh. You can change it to whichever one you want. It literally does not matter. You know, it's whatever works in your brain more. But there's 2, and you can decide what you want to do. You want to make a fun camera move, that's how you do it. But yeah. Okay, that is about all I got. That's it. And I know there's still some layouts that I haven't seen for like just seeing the color versions. If you get those PSDs to me, then I can start some other sequences. I know there's some that are just still being worked on, that's fine. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for coming. Like and subscribe. You know, and yeah, have a wonderful day, everybody. Good night.